Hey everyone, welcome back to a shorter episode of Triumph Review this week, because this week I am only going to be talking about some of the currently obtainable titles that don't really fit into any particular category with the active Triumphs right now. So that's going to include all of the seasonal event titles, as well as Dredgen, Deadeye, Vidmaster, and Conqueror. I am leaving out the PvP titles, Flawless, Glorious, and Iron Lord, because we do have PvP Triumphs in the Lifetime section, so I will cover those titles when I eventually get to the Lifetime Triumphs. Now, if you are a new player to Destiny 2, these are going to be your titles to go for if you want to look cool to all your new Destiny friends, except Conqueror. However, just be aware that if you run these titles in a crowd of people who raid or do dungeons pretty regularly, you are going to be known as the New Light. Just a heads up. Now, we're going to breeze past some of the seasonal event titles pretty quickly here, as they're pretty much kind of similar and or the same. We just finished up the Summer Solstice event, giving us the Flamekeeper title, which, this was not challenging to get. You pretty much just had to do all of the event stuff, like all the event challenges that they gave you. I only did Solstice on one character. I know a lot of people were complaining about the grind, but personally it wasn't really too bad. To be fair though, I did not care about the armor. I didn't care about getting the armor glowing. I literally only did Solstice so that I could get the Flamekeeper title. And yeah, this one was very easy. I have a couple friends who are newer to the game who wanted this title, and they were able to get it just no challenge at all, basically. And so that's pretty much how it's going to be for all of the seasonal event titles in the game, basically, right? We've got Flamekeeper. We have the only other one that I have, which is Star Baker, which is pretty much the same. The reason I only have those two is because I tend to take a break from Destiny just coincidentally whenever one of those events happens. So I am missing Ghost Rider, and I am missing Champ, and I am also missing Reveler. But I mean, you know, if you happen to be playing during a time where there's a seasonal event going on, you can get these within a few hours of grinding. It's really not that bad. Now I want to quickly talk about Conqueror, because there's not a whole lot to say about it. This is the Grandmaster Nightfall title, and back in the day when Grandmasters first released, it used to be super difficult to obtain, and back before they had title gilding, they were separate titles, same with Flawless. So I don't have any of these old ones because I did not do Grandmasters when they released, but I started doing them, I guess, at some point, because I do have this title, and I do Grandmasters occasionally. These days, you know, Grandmasters are really not that hard. We have people soloing them in like 15 minutes or whatever, so, you know, if you're scared to hop into a Grandmaster, I would say just make sure you have the right weapons, make sure you have a good build. There are plenty of builds out there that will say, like, you know, use this for Grandmasters, this deletes champions and Grandmasters. And just make sure that you are LFGing with people who know that you have never done one before. I know a lot of people who LFG for Grandmasters are basically just looking to get it done as fast as possible because they want the adept weapons. So if you make an LFG post, just make sure you make it clear that you've never done a Grandmaster before, and there will be people to help you out. You don't even need a mic for this, so it's really not too bad, I would say. That being said though, you know, if you are new to the game, Grandmasters are not really something you should be looking at. But in terms of requirements, it's not that bad. Earning a high score, you'll get this done in one Grandmaster. You have to defeat 100 champions and complete 6 different Grandmasters. Since we have the 9 Grandmaster setup now with episodes, this just makes it even easier because you kind of get to pick and choose which ones you get. Like for this episode specifically, Devil's Lair is super easy. Warden of Nothing, Saber, Exodus Crash, and Insight Terminus are all just so free. So it really just gives you the freedom to choose which ones you want to do, even if there are some harder ones in the rotation. And then also we have completed Grandmaster Nightfall on each subclass. Like I said before, there are plenty of builds for every subclass. If I had to guess right now, Stasis you probably want to do on Warlock. I would say Strand would probably be best on Warlock or Titan. Void you can do on Titan. There are a bunch of Shield Bash builds that will one-shot champions. Void would also be good for Hunter. You can run an Invis build. Solar is kind of up to you. I like Titan Solar survivability with Loreley Splendor, but Warlock Solar also isn't bad for like well spam builds. And then Arc I would also recommend is like an Arc Warlock build, or if you're feeling pretty daring, you can go in there with an Arc Hunter build. Then for Gilding, it's been straightforward ever since they introduced Gilding. It's just complete each of the GMs for the season. Not really a whole much to say. This just kind of changes season by season depending on what's out and what's not. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 3 constantly around easiest titles for anyone to get in the game. Starting off with Dredgen. This is the most common title in the game, and it is the Gambit one. The downside to this one is that it is common. So if you have this, you are just one of probably over 1 million people who have this, and you look like a new light. But on the upside, you have a title. Also on the downside, you have to play Gambit. That being said though, it's really not that hard to get. Defeating HVTs and winning a match against all races. Just make sure whenever a new race pops up in Gambit for you, you are finding that high value target that you can kill. That's going to be the glowing mini boss that spawns. Drifter calls out when it spawns. Just search the map. You'll find it pretty easily. Generally, it's not wherever the enemies are spawning in the wave that you're on. So just keep an eye out there. Light versus Light is not too difficult. I would recommend playing some sort of one-off super, you know, like Twilight Arsenal for Titan or Blade Barrage for Hunter, Nova Bomb for Warlock, something like that, where if someone invades you and casts their super, or you invade and someone casts their super, even if they manage to kill you with their super, if you get that super off and it kills them after you die, you will still get this. So this one is really not too bad. You just gotta make sure you have quick reaction time if you have your super and you see someone else who is using their super. Then we have win a Gambit match with a Gambit weapon equipped in every slot. Just play a little bit of Gambit, get some weapons, throw them on. I'm sure you'll win a match eventually. There's a lot of new people in Gambit who don't really know what they're doing, so you're bound to win a match eventually. Then we have reset your Gambit rank. This one is probably one that's going to take a while. Grinding Gambit is slow. I recommend just waiting for one of the weeks where it is double or triple infamy. You'll see that on Tuesdays at Weekly Reset, when there's like little banners that pop up when you log into the game. It'll say, hey, Drifter's feeling like he wants to give out extra infamy or whatever the heck. So yeah, just wait for one of those weeks and then really go hog wild and grind some Gambit. Then we have these 5. These are probably the hardest part of Dredgen. You have 3 medals you need to get and these 2 triumphs. So let's start with acquiring Malfeasance. This quest is not too difficult. You will have to get some invasion kills, so just make sure you're keeping an eye on that portal. And you will get this weapon quest from the Meatball Primeval. Kind of a rare spawn, I think, but it might have increased luck for spawning for players who don't have the quest yet. I could be wrong about that, but I think I heard that at some point, so yeah, just keep an eye out for the Meatball. And I want to talk about these 3 together: Thrillmonger, Half-Banked, and Protect the Runner. These 2 are essentially the same thing, sort of, right? Because if you're banking at least 50 motes, you're banking at least half your bank's capacity. So just make sure if you have motes and someone invades, you are hiding from them. You are not engaging unless you know you can kill them. And just making sure you don't die throughout the match. Because if you have motes and you're going for this and you lose them, then yeah, you won't get this. And this also kind of goes hand in hand with Thrillmonger. You know, if you're collecting a lot of motes, you're kind of going to be in the thick of the action with all the enemies, so you will probably end up defeating 40 of them. I recommend Trinity Ghoul, I recommend Sunshot. Those are both pretty easy to obtain for newer players, and they will get you a lot of kills when you are trying to do some ad clear. Don't be afraid to also whip out a machine gun and use some heavy ammo on the enemies just to get some better ad clear. if you're going for half bank to protect the runner, you are not going to be invading, or you shouldn't be. So you can really focus all your heavy ammo on ad clear and primeval damage. Then finally, we have Army of One, defeating 4 opposing guardians in a single invasion. Once you've played enough Gambit, this is not too difficult unless the enemy team has also played a lot of Gambit. Machine guns are very good for invasions right now. I know a lot of people have run a lot of Xenophage. Some people have run Eyes of Tomorrow, but if you're a new player, you probably don't have that. I like to run in with Commemoration, which is an adaptive machine gun. So if you look in your inventory and you see that you also have an adaptive machine gun, those are generally pretty good. You just kind of got to catch the opposing team lacking, sneak up on them, and gun them down. And, you know, Army of Ones, they're not too difficult after a while. Guilding this is also pretty easy. The most grindy thing is probably just resetting your Gambit rank. Yeah, I mean, it's really not that hard. Defeat some Guardians as an invader, you know, complete matches and win. This one, you know, you can really just choose an area to specialize in per match, and you should be able to get this pretty easily. If you don't want to specialize into dealing a lot of damage or collecting a lot of motes, you know, just play safe, play it back. Don't die, and this shouldn't be too hard. Defeat some invaders and deal final blows with whatever the ritual weapon of the season is. This season it is Perfect Pitch. I always say Pitch Perfect, but no, it is Perfect Pitch. And from what I've heard, it's pretty decent. I do have it. I have not used it because SMGs are not super good right now compared to something like hand cannons or you know, just various other options. But if you do end up getting Perfect Pitch, which you should if you are going for Dredgen, then yeah, go ahead and use it because I've heard it's pretty good and you can guild the title after you get it. Next, we're going to talk about Vidmaster. This is kind of a step up in difficulty from Dredgen, but it's also not too bad. Dares of Eternity is kind of like catered towards new lights, I like to say. You guys who are new to the game, you are the prime target audience for Dares of Eternity. Don't get me wrong, the loot is not terrible, but it is also not the best in the game. But you know, it's a good start. It's a good start. So these two basically just require you to play 20 games of dares, and yeah, that's pretty easy. Along the way, you'll probably get at least 1 or 2 lightning rounds. If not, just, you know, play more dares. Hope you get lucky. Then we have some expert dares triumphs. These are probably going to be the hardest ones to do. But you can just LFG for this. Plenty of people have done expert dares plenty of times. And if you didn't know, the dares enemies are set on a rotation week by week. So if you do Dares of Eternity on expert difficulty on 1 week and you do it like twice in a row or however many times in a row, you are guaranteed to get the same order of enemies every single time. There are plenty of ways to look this up on the internet. So this will probably take you a few weeks to get done, but you know, if you just play expert dares a little bit, you'll be fine. Then we have completing dares on expert difficulty with a fire team of 2 to 4 guardians. I actually ended up doing this one just coincidentally pretty recently. I mean, I already had it. I've had the title for years now, but just we needed to do an expert dares. We only had a certain amount of people, and it was absolutely a breeze for us. Granted, we are relatively high-level players compared to, like, new lights and whatever. But if you guys are new to the game, once again, just LFG for this. Join the LFG Discord. It's much better than going into the Fire Team Finder, I promise that. Or, you know, join my Discord. People will be willing to help you and whatnot. Then we have completing Star Horse bounties. I would just say anytime you are about to do an expert dares or just grind dares in general, stop by Star Horse for a quick second, pick up bounties. You can also pick up these bounties from Orbit if you have the Destiny Companion app. So yeah, if you want to save a little bit of time, I guess you can do that. Then there's 2 exotic weapons you need to get. Those are going to be Forerunner and the most famous Destiny weapon of all time, Gjallarhorn. The Forerunner quest is pretty cool. If you're a Halo fan, I think you're going to enjoy this one. It's not hard. It's just a little fun thing, I would say. It's a cool little Easter egg. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but yeah, I recommend going and getting Forerunner. I use it occasionally for various stuff. It's pretty good against Tormentors these days, so yeah, definitely worth picking up. And then Gallarhorn is a staple of rocket DPS. If your team is using rockets for damage, you are going to want to have a Gallarhorn on your team. So I highly recommend picking up Gallarhorn, and also you can say you have Gallarhorn, the most famous weapon in Destiny history. Then we have complete the Grasp of Avarice dungeon and recover all of Wilhelm 7's messages. If you just look up a guide beforehand, you only need to do these in one run of Grasp of Avarice. Grasp is pretty free these days. There are plenty of people who are willing to teach, especially if it is the weekly rotator dungeon. And if you don't know how to check that, basically you can look for the dungeon icons. So this week, I think it is actually Grasp. Yeah. So if you hover over Grasp and you see that it says challenges, hold E to view challenges. This is the weekly rotator dungeon, which means that the loot is farmable and people are much more likely to be doing it this week. So just look for that, and I'm sure you'll be able to find someone willing to teach you in that greater pool of players for the week. That's going to do it for Vidmaster. Now we're going to talk about Deadeye, which in my opinion is the easiest title in the game to get. You get it literally just by playing the game. So you're going to want to unlock 200 weapons. This is the same triumph from the Dredgen title. Defeat combatants with energy, kinetic, and power weapons. I mean, you don't even need 1,000 kills for this one. This is, you can go farm enemies wherever for this, or literally just play the game. Defeating enemies with precision damage, just know where the weak points are for all of these. You will figure it out. Just look for the yellow numbers, shoot them all over, you'll figure it out. Then we have defeating enemy combatants with each of the different types of weapons in the game. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say literally just play the game. I mean, it may look like a lot of kills, you know, like, oh, 300 kills with linears, that's so many. Just play the game. Just play the game. Keep track of what kind of weapons you're using for these. If you do want to go for Deadeye, literally just play the game. And then the unfortunate part is that you do have to play PvP. You do have to get the medals and final blows with each of the weapons. But honestly, that's not that bad. These medals are pretty free as long as you play kind of conservatively. Stay back a little bit, you know, don't get too greedy, play with your team, just get assists and whatnot, and you'll pick these up super easily. You don't even have to do the heavy ammo ones. Yeah, Deadeye is free. It is free. Gilding it is even pretty easy, right? You have to play some Gambit, you have to play some Crucible. Defeat targets with the seasonal weapon, which this season is Perfect Pitch. Defeat enemies with the same archetype in Vanguard, Crucible, or Strikes or whatever. And then, you know, kind of the same thing with these, but in Nightfalls. You know, if you need an easy title, it's Deadeye. So, yeah. But that's going to do it for this episode of Triumph Review. And yeah, thanks for listening to my opinions, and see you later.